The skyline of Kampala symbolizes the relative prosperity of Uganda, one of the economic success stories of Africa. The country attracts Western aid and foreign investment. It has one of the fastest growth rates in Africa and enjoys single-digit inflation. Uganda also compares favourably with its neighbours for political stability. Most credit is given to President Yoweri Museveni, recently confirmed as head of state in the first direct presidential election since Uganda's independence. But foreign donors and investors are concerned. They say his ban on political party activities, creating a no-party state, could lead Uganda back to the horrific repression of predecessors Idi Amin and Milton Obote. Museveni disagrees.
I put everybody under the law. In a minute's time, people were above the law. Some people were above the law. They could kill with impunity. Now everybody is under the law. I have repaired the economy, and Uganda is getting modernized in its production process. So these are my fundamental, that's what I stand for.
Museveni's main election opponent was veteran politician Paul Semogerere, an ally of the exiled and disgraced Obote. Lack of party representation led observers to describe voting as transparent rather than free and fair. Campaigning was mostly peaceful, but Semogerere says that is not enough.
Political parties do have a very positive role to play in any society. Mobilization, articulation of interests, and they build up confidence in everybody to be himself or herself, to speak out, to have a representative, raise issues.
Armed conflict still exists in Uganda, but nothing like that under Amin and Obote, when hundreds of thousands of people died. Museveni says political party activity exacerbates natural divisions that cause bloodshed. But the rebel Christian fundamentalist Lord's Resistance Army says he should restore human rights and democracy. The victims of the current rebellion in the north of the country, as so often in the past, are mainly the innocent, women and children. Landmines planted by the rebels near army detachments have caused many of the injuries. The Lord's Resistance Army is led by Joseph Kony, a self-proclaimed mystic seen here in the yellow kaftan. His group has killed about 200 people in 2 months. The Ugandan government says he's supported by Sudan, which accuses Kampala of backing rebel Sudanese who own this truck spotted in northern Uganda. Vehicles in the north travel in convoys guarded by government troops, but one was still attacked recently and about 100 civilians died. Museveni is from the south, and opponents say he just doesn't care about northerners. In contrast, former President Obote is still quite popular in the north, where he recruited most of his soldiers. It was Museveni who overthrew Obote 10 years ago. The army now tends to recruit more soldiers from the south, reducing what was an important source of jobs for northerners. But Museveni's deployment of the army in the area for protection and mine clearing, as well as attacks on rebels, has won him some northern support. The government thought it had ended the rebellion last year, when the Lord's Resistance Army apparently retreated to Sudan. That now seems to have been a withdrawal to regroup and rearm. But any Sudanese support could end soon. The United Nations recently applied diplomatic sanctions against Sudan, which promptly announced it'll no longer be a haven for foreign rebels. If the revolt does end, it'll leave Museveni with more time and energy for the economy. He pledged after the election to continue opposing multi-partyism while promoting Western-aided economic reconstruction. This would include the sale of more state-owned businesses to the private sector. Uganda's economic life has also been boosted by the return of ethnic Asians, who were expelled by Idi Amin in 1972.
I don't think any Asians had forgotten Uganda as such, because if you're born here, you have some sentimental connections to Uganda. And we were always hoping in our mind that one day we will go back. And when the leadership is right, that will be the time to go back. And when the leadership was right, in our opinion, we decided to come back.
Uganda's relative political stability and economic prosperity is widely seen as being due to its leader.
President Museven has achieved a hell of a lot. I think time will tell and history will reveal that he was one of the good leaders Africa's had.
But Museveni's foreign supporters, as well as his domestic opponents, have their doubts. They believe his no-party policy, which will also apply to parliamentary elections due in June, could eventually lead to widespread repression and conflict. But Museveni, seen here on his beloved farm, is adamant that multi-party democracy itself would lead to such problems. He farms Western animals, but shuns Western methods of adding meat products to cattle feed. As in politics, he advocates his African ways.
These are European breeds. They do quite well here, without that cannibalism, which you have introduced in Europe, where cows eat cows. I'm totally against it. They just eat grass. I never give them any supplementary feed. I don't believe in it.
Uganda compares very well with its neighbours and has improved dramatically since the bloody excesses of the 1970s and early 80s. Guerrilla leader turned farmer and politician, Yoweri Museveni has held the wheel firm for 10 years, steering Uganda between brutal dictatorship on the one side and multi-party democracy on the other. For the moment, it's a road with no end in sight.